Perfect. Okay. So, Sarah, there were a few questions left over from yesterday, and one of the things that you promised us
Yeah.
was to tell us about side lying. And that also ties in with a comment that Daniel had that, yes, side lies are still being made and supplied here. And, we all have kind of a question around side lying for very, is it safe? How helpful is it? But also, if you don't use side lying, does that mean the child has to be in supine all the time? So just your thoughts about side lying, how helpful it is a position, how to do it well, and the use of a something called a side line.
Okay, so I've just popped into, I think I've just put into the chat. Can you see that Simple Stuff Works positioning checklist?
Yes.
Because I think one of the things that's really important is not to, we have an expression here about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Does
Yes.
that, yeah? So that idea of getting rid of a whole pile of things that we do and that we can do really, really well for the sake of something, kind of a different idea. And I think what we need to be really mindful of is that no position, as I was saying yesterday, no position is 100% good and no position is 100%, nothing's 100% positive or 100% negative. That's just not how things work. So what I've done, what I was trying to get across yesterday was the idea of thinking less about a position or a piece of equipment and thinking through what it is that we're trying to achieve. So if you're using a side liar in a classroom situation so that a child can see what's going on around them, they are off the, they may be off the floor, they're safe, they're secure, they're participating in their class. Brilliant. Because the position is appropriate to the activity. Does that make sense? Whereas, so I would be nervous about side lying for sleep. And the reason I would be nervous about it for sleep is because it's such a it's a huge chunk of of a child's 24 hours. That said, I might also be nervous about a child's risk of aspiration. So we have to look at, we're not looking at a position as being this one is good, this one is bad, and life is now simple. We're looking to say, what are we trying to achieve? Does this position meet our intended benefit? What are the unintended risks that are associated with this position? And have I done everything I can to mitigate those risks? So I've just popped into the chat just a checklist that you can go through if you're thinking about a change of position. But please don't. I really, I would be really, I'd be really sad if people left thinking, oh, that means we can't do the thing that we've been doing for a long time. That's absolutely not the message. It's about thinking through. Um, so really good postural care recognizes the benefits of a particular position and it also recognizes the negatives. So supine, symmetrical supine lying is as good as we can get from a symmetry point of view. But if it means that the child is bored stiff looking at a ceiling, when their friends are playing over there and they're not, like that's not what we're here for, Does that, I hope that's okay. But I've popped the checklist into the chat with a quick summary of that.
Thank you, Sarah. But I think
No
that
worries.
goes to the heart of um, this whole training course, that it's not about the equipment, it's not about what's right and what's wrong, but it's
Yeah.
about our understanding of why we do what we do and
Yeah.
the clinical reasoning behind it. But that has to be matched very clearly and closely with what the child needs and what the family wants and what matters to them. So I really hope from everyone that you've taken that message away with you. I wonder, Sarah, there was also a question yesterday that I don't know whether you wanted to answer in a bit more depth, and that is the prone lying.
Okay, so prone lying is very, very difficult to when we were talking yesterday, that most children that I meet who like prone, who want to be in prone and who will do all they can to get into prone, really struggle to know where they are in the world. So the way that we so they have this high sensory need And I externally am looking at them and thinking, you also have a symmetry need. So, how do we, is there a way of matching both of those things? So, if we are taking a child who prefers prone into supine, we need a stable, immersive support, and then we very often include weight. So not over the chest, but we very often include weight in order to give them that compression that they, do you remember yesterday I was saying about 7.8 kilos chest wall mass, somebody my size. If we put them into prone, we're looking at about 12 kilos in terms of the weight of the tissue and the bones and all the rest of it. It's a very compressed position. So we can include weight to try to give the child a little bit more of that sensory input and see how they get on. It's very difficult to come up with a supported prone position because you're always going to have that head turn. If they have any sort of limitation at the hip, then they're going to have to wind sweep. They have to turn themselves because it's the clues in the term limitation. We can't simply try to override that. If you've got, you know, so we need to be really mindful of what we're trying to do. Again, thinking about what's the intended benefit, what are the risks associated. But I tend to find most successful for kids who like prone is make sure that you squash them. They squash themselves. So if we're going to turn them over, how do we give them that security of where they are?
Sarah, there's a new question that's just come up here, and that is, would you recommend changing positions at night, which disrupts caregiver and user sleep, but reduces risk of pressure? So your experience as well about nighttime positioning, and I think this is also very relevant for the quality of sleep of both the caregiver and the child, versus also how important is it if a child can't change their position, should we be changing their position at night? And if so, how often? I'm not sure there's a straight answer to that, but I'd really appreciate your thoughts about that.
I think so. So it seems that no matter where we go in the world, the sleep of carers is the preciousness of that, how amazing a gift it is to give somebody a night's sleep. We cannot underestimate how damaging losing sleep is. So if we have a theoretical risk, say of pressure, so the child is has no signs of pressure injury. The parent has been managing really well. If we have this theoretical risk, oh, we need to be introducing changes of position because I am worried about pressure. If that then severely disrupts the carer's ability to sleep through the night, I think what I would find that very, very difficult to reconcile. So it's about um, what are the risks? Are there supporting services? We use a service. I've no idea whether it's available where people are, but we use something called Treat Easy here. And it's a very, very effective topper, pressure relieving topper. And it allows us to, I'll put it into the chat and you can just take a look at it and see what you think of it. But it allows us to do both the postural care, so the immersion and the contouring of the surface, and the pressure care. But we need to be really careful of those theoretical risks, stuff that we're worried about, and the actual lived situation for the family. And sleep deprivation is a recognized form of torture. It's really hard. From experience, it's really hard having your sleep disrupted for many years over a long period of time.
So one more, well, there are a few more questions, but both to Sarah and to Daniel. So there were also some questions yesterday that if you don't currently have easy access to something like the Nest or the Simple Stuff Works, what might be low cost solutions or workarounds that, and I'm wondering from Daniel's point of view, you spoke about the use of a 3D printer, and I'm just wondering if what experience there is in creating these nighttime supportive structures. Do you have any, Sarah, do you have any ideas, and Daniel, do you have any thoughts about that in areas where the Nest is not yet available?
So if we can be using, we need to be, I am always worried when we think about nighttime and really firm structures. So something that's 3D printed, we need to be same as, so sometimes here we'll have custom contoured night positioning systems, or we have vacuum systems that create a contour, but they end up very, very hard. Um, and that's a bit of a worry. So we're thinking about very long periods of time. I would not like to sleep on a very hard surface, kind of, and you have to get it. If we are looking at any sort of custom system for lying, you have to be confident you've got it exactly right because you then have got that thing for quite some time. But if we can be using, or so if we can be using, uh, I say that there's positioning systems in people's airing cupboard. In people's cupboards, in people's bathrooms, there are rolled up towels with sellotape. There are pillows that are rolled and taped and all of these things. It's knowing where to put the support.
Yeah.
It's how high tricks like getting kids onto their back often involves more hip flexion than you would think of. If you feel underneath their lumbar spine, they need a bit more hip flexion. So it's not, again, it keeps coming back. It's not necessarily the equipment. There's probably something that could be relatively straightforward to use. It's the knowledge and the support. And that's why the partnership with Timian for me is so important because I can't provide that support to the customers that Timian supports. Whereas the team at Timian know all of those tricks, they know all of those things. So yeah, there will always be um, something that you can use in order to make that lying position um, uh, more comfortable, more symmetrical. Um, the 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 question always is, would I sleep in it? Would I put my child in it? And sometimes contraptions, while they can look great, like it's like, would you really sleep in it? What would we want from our bed? We want safe, we want secure, we want soft, we want rest. So it's thinking about those things rather than ending up with something kind of manufactured necessarily.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Daniel, I don't know if there's anything you want to add because we've it's been quite a journey, hasn't it, with Timian?
Yeah, so no, I think you said everything, Sarah. I think it's I mean, theoretically one could 3D print some parts of it, but the thing is it's the whole package, and I think um, would be a bit difficult. But I think it's definitely a space to look out for. I mean, at the moment, the 3D printer in our own use is very limited. There's also a stability. 3D printed objects are in general not the most sturdy ones,
Yeah.
um, but there is tremendous improvement as well in sizing. The size is very limited at the moment. That's why we only do certain parts, like the bolts, I mean the knobs. But I think it's just a space to look out for.
Yeah. I was just wondering the 3D printers I don't know the right word, but for that bracket that that you use as a wedge, I was just wondering where something small like that
Mhm.
might be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, and so so the principle is for lying, the principle is stable, so we don't want things that move around. Immersive, we want children to feel held, and we want the supporting surface to support. We don't want children to have to hold on to themselves. And if possible, we need it to be able to provide derotation. And we can do that we can do it really, really well. But those are the things we're thinking about is stable, immersive, soft, and able to provide the force that we want.
So it's understanding why you're doing what you're doing. It comes back to that. I see that Tina has got her hand up. Tina, if you want to unmute yourself and talk to us.
Hi. Yes, thank you very much, everybody. That was fantastic. I just wanted to ask about children who are GMFS level 3 and develop sort of do an awful lot of side sitting, and then land up sitting on the floor and then find that they've got contractures in their knees. And what do you suggest about them?
Is that for Elsha?
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably.
And for Carby, because I would think standing comes in here. So yeah. And Tina, maybe we'll do another workshop just on your level 3s. Yeah, but let's see how best we can answer that. Elsha.
Can I, before I answer Tina's question, just add to what Sarah and you and Daniel were discussing just now? With the lying supports, I think Sarah repeating those principles, and it really comes down to keeping things simple and keeping things very specific. And in the context that I work often in the more resource context, I think people get carried away often with the pressure risk. And if we look at face value at the CP population compared to the spinal cord population or the very elderly, frail population, and if you look at the international guidelines on pressure risk management, CP does not even feature. The word comes in there once, and their pressure risk is associated with neglect and poor feeding and hydration, and then postural deviations and sitting in bad postures on poorly supported devices. So, you know, in the context that I work in, low resource settings, where children has been lying on whatever standard mattress, be it a faux mattress, being a, you know, made from hay or whatever, those kids don't get pressure sores, and long before they get a pressure area, they're going to shout and scream, and everybody will know that they're uncomfortable. So I think, and with that precision that you need to get the therapeutic approach, by going too thick and too soft and too pressure relieving, you're also going to lose the effect, the therapeutic effect that you have. So I think, again, people must just be realistic. What is my pressure risk of this particular population? I don't know, Sarah and Daniel, if you want to add anything.
I would just say that absolutely, I'm in 100% agreement with you. And we see it here all the time, where we end up with pressure relieving surfaces for children that are too small. And then where we've got say a lateral, something that's providing that derotation, on the actual surface, there's barely any contour. So we need stability in that base layer. Then we need contour that's enough of a contour for that child's body, weight, shape. And we need to think through, we need something possibly at the pelvis and the chest that's going in opposite directions. And then we need to think, I think less, I'm thinking more around just soft, rather, you know, like kind of something that you can sleep in, as opposed to something that's super squashy, you know. Yeah, exactly, because they just sit on top. We see it all the time. We see these beautiful contours, and then goes on top is something, and then the child's like a princess and the pea on top, you know, with not enough holding them. But yeah, completely agree with you, Asha.
Yeah, and that ties in with where I discussed adding the pelvis shelf this morning. And if your top layer is too thick, then you might as well not have a shelf.
Oh, okay.
So, okay. Then can I ask either Tina to repeat the question, or Gillian to repeat the question on the side sitting?
I'm not sure if my
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you, Tina.
You can. Sorry, I jumped in, and I did want to hear the answer to the other thing. Is just this has been burning in my head, just about side sitting and level 3 children. And it seems to me there's a strong argument for postural support for these children as well, and for them not to be ignored. That's all. I just wondered what you thought.
I think there is a strong need for postures, for looking at posture support and different postures for the entire CP population, and sometimes even for ourselves in the way that we do things. And again, something like side sitting at a level 3 is so often used, and it should it be totally excluded? No. But should it be limited? Yes. And what are the alternatives that we can introduce that still will provide that child feeling comfortable and feeling stable and allowing them to use their hands? I don't know, Sarah or Gillian, Carby, anyone want to add anything?
Sarah.
I've just put into the chat Jackie Casey's paper that looks at pain and postural asymmetry from GMFCS 1 through 5. And we know that postural asymmetry is a characteristic of cerebral palsy. So, kind of in the UK, we're arguing, why are we only thinking about these kids at GMFCS 4 and 5 when this is a characteristic all the way through? But 100%, and again, it comes back, doesn't it, to position appropriate to the activity. And say the activity is for 15 minutes, where the position isn't what we desperately want, but the activity is precious because it's to do with your siblings and it's play and it's communication. Like we have to not become posture police, but we have to look at 24 hours. Where could I, if I've got a damaging part of the 24 hours, is there some restorative work that we could do in another part of the 24 hours? And that's why it's so frustrating here in the UK, because often our seating specialists are not working alongside, they're not necessarily the same service that then look at lying. So if you are thinking of developing services in this 24-hour field, it'd be great to have it all housed under one roof, because kids come in like one package as opposed to being split up into these different bits. So definitely something to think through. But yeah, again, completely agree with Elsha. I'm just going to keep agreeing with Elsha.
So I think, and I think what you're all saying there, it's about balance. At the heart of this, and that's what we started with yesterday. This is a child, and a person-centered approach says, well, what's important to the child? What matters to the child? And how do we support the child to be able to enjoy the things that matter most to him? And if in doing so, yes, there may be some risk to body distortion, how do we create opportunities? And I love your word, Sarah, restorative. How do we create opportunities in other activities during the day that might restore that posture? So for me, it's very much about a very balanced approach, but approach which really puts the child at the center and said what's important and what matters to you. I also think of something that I was told very strongly from my Bobath training. You can't take away something from a child unless you give them a better way of doing it. And that in giving them a better way of doing it, if it's, for example, how they sit on the floor, how they play, there may be a better way of a posture for doing that, as long as the child's still able to enjoy that activity and use his hands. So function does not trump quality. I'm going to ask Daniel, there was quite a technical question for you from Karen, and I think there's a group of people with us on this webinar from Kenya. And if I'm not mistaken, they have a assistive device program in Kenya. So if any of them are online and would like to talk to us and share their experience about their workshops and about APT, please do put up your hand and I'll unmute you. But Daniel, there was a question here. Was there any particular clinical observation or joints alignment and improvement progress that Timian used in advancing its products apart from the social aspects? So we also make locally here in Kenya assistive devices with very close follow-up with the children who have issues. This question can help us to continue as we retrofit and advance what we offer. So I don't know if Karen or any of the Kenya team are still on board and want to tell us more about your work, and if in the meantime, if Daniel can answer that. So the Kenya team, just put up your hands and I'll pick you up and unmute you. But over to Daniel.
Yes, I'm just struggling a bit to answer the question. just let me read through it again.
Okay, so Karen, let me, don't know if it's he or her. Right, Karen, over to you. Just unmute yourself and then you'll be able to talk.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Maybe before I could quickly voice my question, the question I was asking was to understand if, David, in your work as you continue developing your assisted devices, were there specific observations you were pointing at that helped you then retrofit or advance your product in a certain way? Apart from, you mentioned the aspect of space being one of the main issue, which that is what I refer to as a social aspect. So that was basically my question, or that will also help me personally. I'm the founder of Smart Sensory and we locally produce these devices. So that will also help us to continue advancing our product and understand exactly what do we need to look at.
Yeah, I think I mean what I realize is one of the most key things is that the caregiver really understands the purpose of the equipment and the use of it. Because it's obviously very time consuming, it's very uncomfortable to use equipment. It's not something that comes just by itself. And we did realize sometimes when the compliance was not there, it was because of lack of information. Maybe the mom or the caregiver doesn't understand why it's so important that they regularly use a standing frame. Why is it so important that the child is, yeah, in this position or whatever the equipment is purposed for. So I think it comes mostly to training, yeah, training and including the caregiver in the whole process. I would say that's probably one of the keys.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, or did you mean it in another way?
Please, a question, Joe.
Hi, Karen.
Karen, do you want to continue? Do you have another question? Does that answer your question? I think you should still be unmuted. Okay. All right. Okay.
Perhaps while we're waiting for Karen to respond, if I can just also add to Daniel, I think particularly in the South African context and a lot of the African context where I've worked, I think part of the problem is also the services, in that I think very much, and certainly my view is that our overall postural management and positioning outside of a chair is very much still lip service, and it is not really an integrated element of our approach to managing persons with CP. And I think it even goes back as far back as what happens in training, because I can say with all of the seating courses we present, yes, we touch on the lying support, but where we go in the organizations and the different services, where we deliver services, whether it's private, whether it's public health systems, there is hardly any posture management, overall 24-hour posture management. And I think we need to maybe have a very good look in how we are going to integrate this, because if we as service providers don't speak from unity and push the approach, then one person, dealing with a few parents is not going to, make that much of a difference unless, they keep hearing it from everybody.
I think that leads on to a question that's a few people posed yesterday that I'm going to ask Sarah and Elsha to address as well, in that, and it comes back to what I said when we began yesterday, that we need to get out of our silos. Our silos that say, as a therapist, this is what I offer, this is what I do, or as the orthotist, or as the person that provides the seating. And we need to get out of our silos, and we've got to have a look at this from the parent's point of view again, which goes back to the goal setting and what matters to the parents. And postural management, postural care, supporting the body should become like a way of life. It's not something that you do. Oh, I've got to lie on my back now for 5 minutes or 5 hours. Then I've got to sit in the chair. Then I've got to do that. So I'm just wondering particularly from Sarah's point of view as well, Sarah and Elsha and Kabi, how would you go about telling both therapists and parents that postural care is not an exercise per se? Because people want to know, how long do I spend in a position? I kind of think it's a way of thinking. And as Sarah said, it depends on what you want to do. But how do we help people to move to an understanding that postural care is done all the time, as opposed to you've got to stand for half an hour or sit in a chair for half an hour? Sarah, let's start with you.
I think one of the first things that we do is we have to be very, we have to have a moment of reflection with regards to the way that we view parents. So is the parent an equal and reciprocal partner? You touched on it yesterday, Gillian, in your introduction. I talked about it in terms of co-production. So we're working with equal people with expertise that we will never understand unless we are parents of children who are a bit complicated. And then the next thing, there was some great work from Jane Hamer in New Zealand, and she was looking at engagement with parents and parents' experiences of introducing nighttime positioning. And what they came back with was around the idea of avoiding terms such as prevention, because the term prevention brings about the idea that things, not only are things difficult now, but they could get even worse. And if they get even worse, whose fault is that if you didn't do the things that I've asked you to do? So instead, shifting to this idea of protection, which is an asset-based approach, which is what you guys do all the time. You are all working, like that presentation from Daniel's superb. It's asset-based. It's saying, so it's not what could we have if we had all these, it's this is what we have right now. And then thinking through, how do we provide support that enables parents to feel as though they are achieving and winning. So I will always ask less than I think a parent's going to be able to do. So I'll be saying, I need 5 minutes in this position. Let's do 5 minutes. You did 10. Unbelievable. Never unbelievable. Like kind of having that, really respecting every single achievement. And yeah, and I think there is a case for, parents talk to each other. Parents, they don't need you to sit down and say, look at these awful things that could happen to their child. They're within a community and they know some of the things that could happen to their child. They see those changes as children are older. What we're looking to do is not frighten parents, but to say, with these tools and with support, and we will celebrate everything that you do. We just focus on your child, protecting the assets they have in terms of their symmetry. Does that make? Yeah.
Elsha and Kabi. Elsha, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Sarah. And I think for me, something else that I've become more aware of over the years is understanding why parents will move out of, the best postures and with the positioning. And if I can add one reason or one basket for it, it is almost they want the child to feel and be more included and engage with them. And for me, one of the items that always stands out is the kid is on the couch. And why? And why can't he just sit next to you in his wheelchair, you know, nicely positioned? Why must he be on the couch? And it has to do with the contact and the physical closeness and being able to give a hug. And I've now gone as far as with some of my kids for the lying supports, getting two sets of parts of the nest, one for the bed and one for the couch. And now they're happy because we build a little nest on the couch. And yes, it's not perfect, but it is far better than what they have done. So really understanding the way the parent also want to include and express their love to the child, and try and see how can I work in my therapeutic approach in that too.
Kabi.
Yeah, can't really add much. Obviously agree with all that was said. I think the thing that helped me most as a therapist is really when I learned to not, as you said in the beginning, Gillian, we have to do this much or for this long, or this is what has to be done, sort of the exercise or the recipe. But when I started looking at what's in front of me and what does this body need, and the way, if I just think back at how we worked at Malamulele, how the work shifted from almost recipe based to teaching caregivers more and them being collaboratively part of why we are doing something, there was a bigger shift in carryover and improvement as you would follow up a child. So I think it changed my thinking to work like that, but I also think it changed the way I work with caregivers. I would, rather than teaching them positions or like help them understand why we are doing it, but also then linking that with their goals, like you said, Elsha, like why do they want to be on the couch, but understanding what that body needs, and then allowing them to be adults that they are, that they can implement and make choices and problem solve together with you, and not have to sit and wait for you to tell this is the thing you have to do.
Sarah, that's a beautiful comment that you've made, that the research in the UK found one of the most protective factors for avoiding premature mortality for those with learning disabilities is love. And I think as therapists, we often, we can't, I don't know, as a therapist, you just have something drilled into your identity that you are there, you've got to solve the problems and you've got to fix things. And I think I have been hugely humbled daily in the journey that I've walked with parents. And I wish when I was younger, I had really listened much more to parents. That wasn't something that was really emphasized a lot, that the collaborative goal setting, that you collaborate and you work together with parents. And as a result, and I think, we spent resources and equipment was difficult to get hold of. And so when I finally got a piece of equipment for a child, I had these beautiful wooden chairs made, and then I found the parents had used it for firewood. I was absolutely horrified. You know how much trouble I went to get this chair was going through my mind, as opposed to saying, why would you use it for firewood? Clearly, there was a greater need in the family. But also, would she have used for firewood something that was really helpful? And I think so often as therapists, we you give a piece of equipment because you think it's going to be helpful, but we really don't interrogate or spend enough time with the family saying, is this really something that you are going to use and be helpful to you? I also think of the times that I've spent going to various institutions where there's a rubbish pile full of equipment that's been thrown out. And why don't I learn from that and say there's a reason why all this equipment is on the rubbish tip? And so I no longer despair about that. I rather change the question and say, let me try and find out why. What was the reason for that? And I think the more you ask those questions, I think the more successful you're likely to be in what we all want, is doing something that we want the best for the child. We want the absolute best for the child, and we want this child to be functioning at his best possible potential and to feel loved within his family. So yeah, as I say, lots of lessons in humility from working with parents. Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Does anyone, please feel free to put up your hand. I don't know, Elsha, if there was anything else you wanted to say about questions that came up during the seating that you want to comment on. And I've just comment here on how can we manage parent expectations. I have a few parents still placing their kids in a walker. Their goal is for their child to walk. The child can't sit or have head control. I'm really struggling. And I promised that we would come back to this yesterday. And I think this is also, and I'd love to hear Sarah and Kabi's comments on that. But I think what I have learned when working with parents is that parents start with hope. You hope. We all hope for a child that's going to be the best, the brightest, that's going to be just like other children. And it's helping parents make that adjustment from hope to a realistic expectation. And that can't be done overnight at all. It can't be something that you tell the parent your child will never do X, Y, and Z. But a tool that I have found really, really helpful is how do you get parents to come to that realization themselves? And that's where I found the GMF classification really helpful, that parents are smart, they are clever, they know their children well. Provide parents with information, and I found that the GMF's classification really helpful, that parents understand there are 5 levels. What are the 5 levels? I don't tell a parent your child is level 4, level 5. The parent needs to be able to figure that out for themselves based on what I've told them about, say, the GMFCS, and then helping them to understand, well, if your child is level 5, do they go to level 4? Do they go to level 3? Do they go to level 1? And I think helping parents by giving them information that they come to that realization themselves is much more helpful than me standing there saying your child's never going to do X, Y, and Z. So, and it is, you can't set goals, realistic goals, unless you and the parent are on the same page. And there's a lot in the literature, a lot evidence-based. We've got to set goals. We've got to set goals. There's an assumption that parents know, and parents and therapists know how to set goals. And I think we have to do a lot of preparation work beforehand in helping parents to realize what the potential is, what the expectations is, and for therapists as well to be on the, instead of thinking about impairments and the body is stiff or the joint range is this or the child has no head control. It's about saying, let's get down to the basics of what really matters to you and the child. Kabi, you've worked with parents a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it remains a difficult thing. I don't think it's easy at all. And I don't think there's a clear answer. And it will, I think, also depend on your context and what relationship you have with a particular parent. I think that's the biggest starting point. And in some contexts, that's hard to build because you might be seeing someone only once in a while. But I think that would always be the baseline, is to develop some kind of trust relationship with a caregiver. And then to build on what Gillian has said, to present the facts is really helpful. So I think just taking it directly from that question, so having this hope of that my child would walk and that putting them in a walker, I would ask why. Why do you want them to walk? To be able to do what? And unpacking that with a parent. Why would you want to put them in a walker? So is it that they can be included? Is it that you can get on with your daily tasks? So not taking that away, but unpacking the why and seeing what other options there are. And then also looking at if it is, say, for instance, walking, unpacking what do we need for walking, and what are the building blocks that we can put in place to work towards. So not saying that it's yes, we're going to walk, or yes, we're never not going to walk, but I find that we're doing it that way. If someone understand, even for a child that doesn't have CP, for any regular kind of therapy, if a child is struggling with eating, why are we starting with maybe a postural thing or a tactile thing, or what are we building? What blocks do we need to get to that end goal? So using something like that hope goal and unpacking it a little bit, and having someone feel like they are heard, that you are hearing what they want, but that you are realistically looking at the components of it. But yeah, it remains a sensitive topic.
Could I just add one thing? I completely agree with you, Kabi, with that it's relationship based, isn't it? We work in a, no matter where we are in the world, we're in a human industry. It's, like kind of when we're one human to another human. So that relationship is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And it has to be respectful. That mutual positive regard is really important. The other thing I would say, because as a parent, so I've done 18 years now of supporting Abby, who I had 6 years with her as a little high flyer, and then cancer. So that's completely changed. And sometimes I can look back on conversations that I've had with health practitioners, and they have undeservedly had me offload a whole pile of stuff on them because they've been the straw that breaks the camel's back, in terms of I've had this and then this and then this and then this, and then it might feel innocuous to you that I've just added, all I need you to do is this one thing. I'm only asking you to change his lying position, and you seem to have, and Brené Brown calls it a chandelier reaction, which which makes it sound great. But I think one of the things that's really important is to recognize that, so I always consider myself an unwilling partner in the dance with the health practitioners and the social care practitioners. You all get to choose to dance, but I didn't want to. So sometimes I will tread on your toes, and I hope that you will forgive me and carry on dancing with me, because I don't want to be here. And that's really important to recognize. But yeah, complete relationships the whole way. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Sarah, thank you so much for that. I think that's really profound. It gives me a lot to think about, that you didn't choose this particular dance. And I think with that, as a healthcare practitioner, there's so much that we've got to learn, so much that we don't get right. And I think, as Kabi and yourself has both said, it's about having a relationship in the first place.
And recognizing that there is so much that you do get right.
Yeah.
There is so much that you do get right. And don't dwell on that bit where, I wish I'd done X, I wish I'd done, recognizing and being compassionate to yourself that you've done the very best that you can do with the knowledge that you have at the time, and then you plow on.
But I think if I can jump in there, I think that's very important. But I also do think that sometimes therapists do things that is creating the wrong expectation with the parent. And with my work situation, I am in a position where I often get to review documentation of therapies that has happened. And then there's a level 5 child, and each week's therapy is about working on independent sitting and head control. And wow, he can sit for 2 seconds today. Today was not a good day. He could only sit for 1 second independently. And you're thinking, what expectation does this therapy and the goal of this therapy creates, and this mismatch as to this is 5 years later, and we're still working on this goal that isn't a realistic goal. Yes, we as therapists need to be, as you say, we need to be compassionate with ourselves, but I think we also need to critically look at, am I coming from the right place, and is my intervention appropriate, and is my training, in terms of what I have received to be putting out there, is that appropriate, or do I really need to relook what and how I'm doing things?
And again, I'm in agreement with you. And to me, I see kind of two things in there. I see potentially a therapist that doesn't know exactly what you say. What else am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do with this child, so I'm going to be doing this. Or I see a therapist who is fearful of that conversation where they say, this is not like we're not in this place. And so both of those are training issues, aren't they? They're both training and confidence and mentorship and being able to say, come on, like for that learning, like you say there, Elsha, when you're reviewing with that therapist to say, so when this next child comes to you, what, so we don't repeat this. But yeah, definitely.
So I'm interested in that, where we've come to at this point after 2 days of examining the complexities of postural care, that what it really comes down to is this relationship and understanding, and putting the child and the family at the heart of everything. Before we close, I think there was an unfinished question for Daniel, and Chrissy has, and this was based on Karen's report. I'm assuming that Chrissy and Karen worked together, and I've unmuted Chrissy. So if you're able to talk to us, Chrissy, you said you understood Karen's question to be, was the advancement of the Timian work a result of answering specific clinical questions besides the social aspect? Chrissy, do you want to just talk to that, and we'll ask Daniel to respond? Chrissy, you just need to unmute. Okay. So I think then Daniel I understand that question, and it's in the Q&A section, is that the way that you advanced and progressed your models and the equipment that you made, what prompted that? What was behind that way of, well, it's a continuous improvement as I understand it, but what pushed you to do that?
Yeah, no, I think most likely what really was, well, a game changer for us in thinking is children with cerebral palsy in South Africa and many other countries. They might have only a chance to receive therapy maybe once a month, maybe every 2 months. That's the realistic frequency in a government setting. So we realized the less therapy children receive, the more important equipment obviously is, because equipment is in a sense therapy over time. I mean, it hopefully is helping the child to be in a healthy, in a good supportive position, which replaces in a sense the therapy. So just realizing equipment is always extremely important, but if there is no therapy available frequently, it is even the more important. So that was really the driver for why we really believe equipment makes all the difference in the lives of children with special needs. And the progress and the advancement is from feedback, is from seeing needs. And that's why I'm so privileged to be so connected. We have the therapy team, they come back with feedbacks. I see the children in the camps. I can experience their struggles, their challenges. And yeah, improvements are always made by challenges you face. Yeah, that is, I think, was the driver for advancement.
Chrissy, I think you're unmuted now. Did you want to ask? Did you want to say something? No. I suspect that
She's still muted.
yeah. Who's talk just now? Okay. Right. Okay. I think there's probably may well be a connection problem. It is now 2 minutes to our closing hour, which is 5 o'clock here in South Africa, 4 p.m. in the UK. And I also just want to give a shout out to people from Colombia that joined us at 12. I think it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning for you in Colombia. So I really want to say, and to people in on the other side of the time zone, this is now pretty late at night. So I really want to thank you as our participants in this for the inconvenient times and for your commitment and dedication to showing up and wanting to learn. So a huge thank you to you. I will be sending out a survey, and I really, really, really ask you to fill it in and to give us the feedback. It's only 7 questions. It will come to you via the Zoom link if I've set it up correctly. And I really do want to encourage you to answer. This is the first time that we have done something like this. So it's a joint adventure between SA Child and the GLM CPR, and it really is aimed at therapists and families working in the low resource settings. That's really, for me, what was driving this, to say, how do we get good, expert, excellent information into the hands of people working at the grassroots level? That's what we're about and what we want to do. So we need to do it better. We need to know what else would be helpful to you. And so your feedback in filling out that survey would be really very much appreciated. I would like to say thank you very much to our panelists, to Daniel, to Sarah, to Elsha, to Kabi. I think, and I don't think I'm just biased. I think this is the truth. We've really got some of the best speakers available to talk to you, and they are excellent experts because it comes from their own experience over many years. So I just want to say a big, big thank you to all of them just for their willingness to be part of this. I've really thoroughly enjoyed the journey, learned so much, and I just wonder if I could just hand over to each of you just to say a final sentence. Starting with Sarah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes.
I knew it. Oh no, just to say thank you very much for the opportunity, Gillian, to everybody that's organised today. And I just want to say I recognise that I don't work in the same context as the vast majority of you, for which I my absolute utmost respect, and I hope that the things we've been talking about are helpful. And if there's anything that you can let me know in order to improve the way that I've shared that information, I would genuinely appreciate it, because what I don't want is to share the information and for people to feel that it's not appropriate to them because of the context you're in. That's the last thing I want. But please do keep in touch, and thank you again.
Yeah. Elsha.
I'm so glad you made Sarah go first. I want to say just, thank you to my co-participants and Gillian for putting this all together. And then also thank you very much to all the participants who attended the 2 days. Really, from your questions and your interactions, I could see that there's such a need, and it felt to me you were like sponges absorbing all of the information from the side. And I hope at least that we've given you some seeds to go back and plant. And good luck with that, and let us know how your journeys go, and reach out if we can do more training and education and through SA Child and the other resources. We're definitely there, and we want to, all of us are definitely passionate to share these things we gained through knowledge of other people, through our own experiences, and it's not ours to keep. It's definitely something we want to share.
Thank you, Elsha. And to Kabi.
I think it's harder going last. So good luck, Daniel. No, thank you so much, Gillian, and for everyone that made this such a wonderful learning opportunity. I definitely learned a lot as well. And I think, very proud of everyone that made the time, even though it was weird times in their day, and just made the time and to sit through all of this. And it really shows your commitment. And yeah, I hope that that motivation and this will inspire you to continue your work. So it's lovely to be a part of this, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Kabi. Daniel.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for all the panelists. I learned a lot, and it was really very inspiring. And I want to thank you all attendees, because you all somehow work with children with cerebral palsy or with disabilities, and you're doing an amazing work. And I really appreciate for all you're doing and for taking this time to attend. And thank you so much, Shirley, for organizing this.
Farewell. You'll be getting the survey. I look forward to hearing your responses, and we will act upon them. Thank you all so much. Good night and good morning.